Hello everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my channel Colonati. Today I'm continuing to revisit past anticipated book releases and let you know, did I read the books that I was really looking forward to, and if I did, what did I think about them? This is going to be a bit of a weird batch of books though, because for whatever reason, a whole bunch of things on this list I haven't read. Either they haven't actually come out or I've intentionally skipped them for reasons. So this may be pretty quick to get through, or it may be very long if I get like super mired down in explaining a controversy or two, so whatever. So let's get into it. These are books from January, February, and March of 2020 that I was looking forward to right before the pandemic started to disrupt the entire world and the publishing industry. First on this list is one of Seanan McGuire's Wayward Children novellas, Come Tumbling Down. If I remember correctly, because I'm starting to find that these blend together a lot in my memory, Come Tumbling Down is the conclusion to Jack and Jill's storyline. We go back to their portal fantasy world with some of their friends and kind of tie up loose ends there. And I did not love this one. I have not been particularly drawn to Jack and Jill's storyline in general. The novellas that have focused on them have not been my favorites, but I remember thinking that this it wasn't hitting for me in terms of characters and their decisions and stuff, so mostly meh. And this is the point in the series where I realized that maybe these are not automatic reads for me anymore. I really loved the first novella, Every Heart a Doorway, and I also really liked, was it the fourth one I'm currently blanking on? The one with the Goblin Market. Really enjoyed those two. The rest have been interesting, fun reads, or not so much. So I'm not saying I'm done with this series, but it's definitely not like auto buy, auto read for me. Next is another novella, Prosper's Demon by KJ Parker. I knew I wanted to read this because I've read a few of KJ Parker's Tor.com novellas before and thought they were really interesting. And I also thought that the cover of this novella was super memorable. I don't remember anything about the actual story, however. It was just kind of a wash, and it's bizarre because I know that I read this for a book group discussion. I think I recommended it for the book group discussion. We talked about it, and I remember nothing about what happened in it. There's a demon. I think the demon is possessing a man, and things go wrong, and there's like this explosive ending that kind of left me puzzled, like, what? Anyway, I think there's a sequel out already, and maybe I'll read it. Maybe it will stick in my memory a little bit better. Then there is one that I haven't read because it still isn't out, and that is The Culture, Notes and Drawings with Ken MacLeod by Iain M. Banks. I've been tracking the release of this for at least 4 years now, I think, and it still hasn't come out. It still doesn't have a firm release date. It still doesn't even have cover art as far as I know. So I'm like giving up on this particular one. If I ever actually see it out in the wild, because I don't know, it comes to fruition, I will buy it and read it, but it just goes on that short pile of things that just drift around with constantly changing publication dates, and you hope that maybe someday it actually exists. That and the next Numair book by Tamara Pierce. Anyway, if you know more about the story of what's going on with this particular book, please let me know because I haven't heard much about it. Then another one that I haven't read, Daughter from the Dark by Sergey and Marina Dyachenko. I read their first novel translated to English, Vita Nostra, and I really enjoyed it. That was a journey. That book was a dark journey, and I found it very thought-provoking by the end. So I immediately wanted to read their next one, and there's no good reason for why I haven't read Daughter from the Dark before. I've actually gotten it from the library a couple times, and I think I was planning to buddy read it with Rhea from the Bookfinch. I think they might have ended up reading it on their own. So someday this will happen. It keeps slipping my mind. Finally, onto ones that I have read though. Another novella, Finna by Nino Cipri. I really enjoyed this one. About the only thing I didn't like about it was the relationship drama. Because this is about a couple that has recently broken up. They work at this very IKEA big box style store where interdimensional portals randomly open up, and they go on this journey trying to find a lost customer and encounter doppelgangers and all of that. And I found it highly entertaining. I just didn't love the post-breakup relationship drama stuff in it. I've also read the sequel, or more like companion novella called Defect, which was even better. And these two stories together just kind of mean Nino Cipri is permanently on my radar now. Anything that they write now, I will probably seek out. Next is The City We Became by N.K. Jemisin. The first in what I think is going to be a trilogy is contemporary fantasy set in New York City. And really like the concept of this. It is based on a short story that she published a number of years ago, and I love that short story. I thought it was magnificent. The impact of the beat of the language, the style in that story left a really big impact on me. So I was really excited when I found out that she was going to kind of expand the concept of that, which is kind of like cities evolving to like a consciousness and a mage, a magician, getting powers from that or whatever. Is a really interesting idea. And this series is about kind of like the birth of New York City, which doesn't just have one mage or magician, it has like 5. And the thing about this book, which I found a little bit unsatisfying, is that it's such setup. It's like, it's entirely setup. It is these people coming into their power, and then that's just it. And the second book hasn't been announced yet. So a very interesting concept, and very deeply engaged with the current conversations about social justice and everything. And I found it to be a very interesting read because of that. But also, I just don't think this is the strongest thing that Jemisin has come out in recent years. It is also pretty hard to top her Broken Earth series, just gotta admit that one. So I will continue on with the series, but I'm not sure it's gonna be my favorite thing, but who knows what could happen in the next book. Next, there are 2 books that I have intentionally skipped reading for very different reasons. The first one is Docile by K.M. Szpara. Now, this was one of the like super hyped tentpole releases from Tor in early 2020, and like a lot of people, I kind of got sucked up into the hype machine on it. It sounded really interesting. I had read a few of K.M. Szpara's short stories and thought Szpara was an author to watch and to, you know, explore their debut novel. And then people started reading the book, and some people whose opinions I really trust came out and were like, this actually has some deeply problematic elements to it, and like some really difficult, tricky issues with sexual consent and relationship dynamics, abuse of power. Maybe also it doesn't deal well with like systemic issues of race and the history of slavery in the part of the country that it's set in, like all this sorts of stuff. I'm not the best person to explain this controversy because obviously I haven't read the book, but other people have spoken at length about this, and I think it's worth reading about that before jumping into the book at this point. But I realized that this was not going to be the read for me. I was warned off of it by a couple of people who said that I would probably just find some of it very disturbing, so I did not read it, and I do not plan to. And then the other one that I've skipped is a novella, Hearts of Oak by Eddie Robson. This one I just don't particularly find much interest in it anymore. I haven't heard anything about it since it came out, and I just didn't read it because my library never got it. So would I ever pick it up if I found a copy of it? Perhaps, but for now it's just not something I'm super interested in. And then the last thing that I mentioned on this list was an omnibus called Pericles Progress by Lois McMaster Bujold. This is an omnibus of the first 3 Penric and Desdemona novellas published by Bain, I believe. So if you've been following along with my channel for a while, you know how much I have raved about this series of fantasy novellas from Bujold. She's one of my favorite authors, and I love this fantasy series. But the novellas omnibuses are first self-published, so I usually buy them as ebooks as soon as they drop, and I read them that way. And then they have a hardcover collector's edition that comes out from Subterranean Press. I collect those too. And then Baen seems to have picked up the rights to publish the omnibuses, like 3 or 4 of them at a time, and they come out as hardcovers and then as paperbacks. So for people who are trying to catch up on the series now, the Baen omnibuses are a pretty good way of going if you want to get a hard copy that isn't like a more expensive hardback collector's edition. So that is why I mentioned it on this list. Obviously I've read the first 3 novellas and I totally love them, and I highly recommend starting the series if that sounds like your thing. And that is it for this list of anticipated books from the past. I wish that there were more things from this batch that I had read and really loved. I feel like there was pretty much nothing that I could rave about from this batch, but such is the way of things, I suppose. The next batch is a lot better. I have a lot more to say about that one, so we'll get to that one soon, hopefully. But anyway, let me know if you have read any of the books from this list. Leave me your thoughts down below, and I will talk to you again very soon. And until then, bye.